Exposed, the sinister secrets of the haunted house that terrified Walter Hubbell for 10 years. Walter Hubbell was a school janitor, but he was also a man battling shadows. For the last decade, he had trudged through the quiet suburb of Elmwood, his heart heavy with the weight of memory and loss. Just 2 doors down loomed a dilapidated house, its darkened windows resembling soulless eyes watching, waiting. The locals whispered tales of families vanishing, swallowed whole by that cursed abode. Every night, it drew Walter closer. Shadows danced, teasing and taunting, whispering secrets only he could hear. The nights grew restless. Walter, alone with his grief, cringed at the symphony of chilling sounds. Was it the wind that whistled through cracked wood, or something more sinister? Every whisper seeping through the walls seemed to beckon him with frigid fingers. His heart raced as he stood at the edge of his yard, staring into the deep recesses of darkness. The comforting crickets hummed a lullaby of the living, but him? He felt like a ghost. Every child's laughter pierced his chest like a dagger, each echo a reminder of what he had lost, not just his wife but the warmth of a life filled with joy. Walter sought solace from neighbors, but their dismissive glances and scoffs stung like venom. "It's just an old house," they said, brushing off his fears. Yet he couldn't shake the feeling that something dark thrived within its walls, a malevolence that had claimed all who had entered before him. The folklore deepened with each thread he pulled. Faces of the lost families flickered through his mind like shadows on a screen, some familiar, others hauntingly strange. Each revelation tightened fear's grip on his chest. What if their stories were intertwined with his own? What if he was next? A chill ran down his spine as he imagined the whispers beckoning him further, unraveling the fabric of his reality and weaving in threads of betrayal. Before we continue, I need to tell you something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Crimson leaves crunched beneath his feet one fateful night, the moon slashing through the darkness, illuminating the house that had haunted his thoughts. As he approached, a lullaby drifted from the depths, a haunting melody sweet yet sickening, mingling with the scent of roses that instantly reminded him of his wife. Compelled by emotion, he stumbled closer, unaware of the shadows that screamed for him to turn back. His heart pounded, the weight of dread coiling tighter, suffocating as he slowly ascended the creaky porch. In that moment, a figure emerged from the doorway, a silhouette strikingly familiar yet twisted. It moved like a memory, morphing into a collage of faces he once knew, blurring his ability to comprehend what was real. Was it the shimmer of his late wife's gentle smile or the twisted grin of something sinister? Just as he steeled himself to step back, an unseen force yanked him into darkness, flooding him with terror, leaving just one question echoing in the abyss: would he finally face the truth, or be swallowed like those before him into the heart of despair? Walter's breath hitched as he fell into the inky blackness, his body suspended in a weightless void. Panic clawed at his throat. He gasped, half expecting an icy grip to stop his descent, but nothing touched him. Silence enveloped him, deep and suffocating, broken only by his racing heart. Thoughts of escape shot through him, but the deeper dread of what might be waiting at the end paralyzed his limbs. That he landed with a thud on a cold, hard surface. The air around him stirred, and he squinted, trying to make sense of the shapes surrounding him. Faint echoes brushed against his ear, a symphony of murmurs rippling through the dark. The words eluded him, like whispers on the wind. He strained to listen, but they slinked away, slipping back into the shadows. Walter. The voice was sharp, a crisp requiem echoing in the hollow of his mind. He knew that sound. A flicker of hope ignited, overshadowed by the creeping dread that followed. "Walter, you shouldn't be here." "Mary?" He fought through the fog, pushing himself to stand. "Is that you?" From within the shadow cast by dilapidated walls, a figure emerged. It was her, but her face was marred by shadows, twisted into a grotesque version of its familiar smile. Her eyes glowed with an unsettling light, wretched and hollow. "Leave this place, Walter. You don't belong here." Her voice trembled, a haunting echo of the love he once knew. As she stepped closer, a chill washed over him, the air thickening like fog. "No!" he shouted, shaking his head. "I need to know the truth." The moment he said it, the room trembled as if the very foundation of the cursed house resented his declaration. Whispers escalated to frantic cries, echoing off the walls, the sound pulsating like a heartbeat. The shadowy landscape distorted, revealing brief flashes of the families lost to this dark fate, faces twisted in fear, screaming silently for help, mouths agape in eternal terror. Overwhelmed, he stumbled backward and collided with something wet and sticky blood. He blinked, focusing on the swirling shadows around him. Each face he witnessed pulsed with desperation, fear, and abandonment. His heart sank as he realized they were all calling out to him, pulling at his consciousness, begging for release. "Walter." Mary's voice sliced through the chaos. "Come back. Don't let them take you." But the house was hungry, a hungry beast fueled by despair. The shadows began to converge, wrapping him in a shroud so thick he couldn't breathe. The chill seeped into his bones, and the horrid realization hit him like a freight train: the door he had crossed was never meant to let him leave. "Fight it, Walter," Mary urged, her face momentarily emerging from the shadows, desperation painted across her features. "You must stay strong." It was as if the house could sense his wavering resolve. A deafening roar erupted, a cacophony of all those who had been consumed by its malevolence. The walls shuddered around him, each shiver echoing a warning he was running out of time. They wanted him, body and soul. Desperation surged within him as he fought back, mouth set in a grim line. "I won't let you take me," he screamed into the dark, focusing on the flicker of Mary's face amidst the chaos. Suddenly, a blinding light burst forth, pushing the shadows away. Walter felt the room shift, the whispers became yells, and something deep within him ignited. Could he finally break free? But just when hope flickered, darkness surged back in, swallowing the glow. Shadows surrounded him, hissing their malevolence, whispering lies that pulled at his sanity. With a final surge of defiance, Walter screamed, but the mounting dread drowned it out, silencing his plea. And then nothing, the profound stillness consumed him, leaving a mere echo of what once was, fading into an unsettling abyss. Time stretched, twisting his perception, anchoring him to an unsettling reality that felt carved from stone. A familiar laugh echoed, chilling him to the core. "You'll never leave. Welcome home." Walter's heart sank. What had he truly awakened in that house? The question hung in the air. Weightless yet heavy, promising succor and sorrow, but deeper still those whispers promised a truth greater than any horror he could imagine. What awaited him in the heart of that abyss, just beyond the reach of light? Walter floated in the silence, his mind reeling, but slowly, he became aware of a low hum vibrating through the stillness. It gnawed at his senses like nails on a chalkboard, pulling him out of the disorienting abyss. Closer now, he felt the weight of ground beneath his feet. Cold and rough, like tombstone granite. Relief washed over him, he was still here, alive. But then, slowly, the shadows began encroaching. They skittered along the walls like skunks fleeing a fire, hungry for a meal, hungry for him. The previous horrors echoed in his mind, and he could hear the whispers again, incoherent but rising. A swarming tide of voices chewing away at his composure. "Walter, Walter," he staggered forward but then stopped. The voice calling to him, was it Mary or something malevolent impersonating her? The thought made bile rise in his throat. His pulse raced, and he fought back against the rising panic that threatened to take root. "Mary!" he called out, straining to detect any trace of her familiar tone. "Is that you?" "Find me." The voice shifted, blending with the whispers, making it all the more unsettling. It twisted the syllables, crept into his subconscious like ivy over bricks. A flicker of movement drew his attention. From the shadows, ghostly figures emerged, shadowy children with hollow eyes, mouths gaping in silent screams. They reached out with tiny hands, grasping the air as if they could pull him into the depths of their despair. He recoiled, retreating instinctively. No. I want to be like you. The children's faces morphed, transforming to those Walter recognized, neighbors who had disappeared without a trace, once cheerful faces ignited by terror. Their mouths moved, yet they offered nothing but muted cries, a silent play portraying the fate that he feared awaited him. With every second, the weight of the house bore down upon him, suffocating. He could sense the walls closing in, breathing in rhythm with his own panicked heartbeat. The air was thick and tasted metallic, like blood. He felt as though the house reveled in his fear, feasting on it like a parasite. No. He shouted defiantly. Wisdom slipped through his fingers. He should run, find a way to escape. Yet, another part pulled him toward the growing darkness, like a moth attracted to flame. You're not going to keep me here. A floorboard creaked beneath him, and he burst into motion, limbs suddenly alive. He darted toward the glimmer of light at the far side of the room, only to find the exit blocked, the heavy door, now a wall of shadows. The intensity of dread grew, pressing down on him as shadows flickered, weaving into the doorframe and coiling around him like snakes. A white-knuckled grip on his sanity slipped. Was he going to be absorbed as they had? Walter, help us! The fractured echoes filled his ears, each one layered atop the other until it formed an agonizing cacophony. His skull throbbed, and he clamped his hands over his ears as if to drown it out. Help us! Help us! Glimmers of notion surfaced, an urge to save, a need to reach out, to connect. The thought clawed at him, insistent, dark, but it was overshadowed by the fierce instinct to escape. Get away from me! He pleaded, the rawness in his throat choking him. Yet, the house responded with a low growl that shook the very ground beneath him. He turned sharply, the shadows swirling violently, and then it happened, a ripping sensation, as if the house were tearing itself apart. The entities began to lash out, clawing at his skin, pulling him back, and he felt their cold touch. All around him, the whispers crescendoed into a frantic wail, fighting through the chaos. Walter's vision narrowed on an eerie glow, another door, not barricaded, glinting through the writhing darkness. But as he advanced, a bone-chilling laugh echoing the same words, "You'll never leave. Welcome home." Desperation built like a tidal wave inside him. He took one last breath, ready to plunge into the unknown. What lay waiting behind that door? Freedom or something worse? There was only one way to find out. The glow beckoned through the chaos, a siren's light amidst the shadows. Walter sprinted toward it, heart pounding, breath quickening, each step punctuated by the cold fear that what lay within might consume him. The house felt alive, a creature recoiling, yet determined to retain its prey. That he lunged for the door, fingers grasping the knob, cold metal biting into his palm. The laughter grew more frantic, taunting him, reverberating like thunder. You think you will find escape? This is where you belong. Walter twisted the knob, but the door remained stubborn, resisting his pleadings. Panic clawed at his legs, and something beneath the surface of his reason told him to stop, to go back. But he didn't have time to think. Desperation fueled his every movement. He pushed against the door with all his might, and finally, it swung open with a eerie creak, a sound like the sigh of the damned. The light flooded over him, bright and blinding. He staggered into the room beyond, absorbing the warmth, a stark contrast to the freezing dread still clinging to his skin. But his relief was short-lived. The room was empty, save for the echo of a single light bulb swinging from a frayed wire above. Dust particles danced in the air, swirling like tiny lost souls searching for a way out. Mary? He called again, desperation creeping into his voice. Are you here? Suddenly, a breath, a whisper, a shiver ran down the back of his neck. Something was watching him. He turned, eyes darting to each shadow cast by the bulbous flickering light. The walls seemed to breathe, closing in, and he felt the weight of unseen eyes pressing down on him. A rustle echoed from a corner, and Walter's heart lurched. Emerging from the gloom was a figure, pale and trembling. "Mary?" Walter, her voice was a lament, a sound that twisted the very core of his being. She reached out, but the moment their eyes met, his heart sank. The light flickered again, and in that instant, her face morphed suddenly, not Mary but one of the shadowed children from before, twisted by sorrow and darkness, agonized and hollow. "No!" Walter gasped, staggering back. The very essence of the room seemed to ripple, the shadows stretching out like tendrils, clawing at the walls. He felt the air grow dense, oppressive, as if the room were a cage determined to siphon the life from him. "Help us!" the creature whimpered, the familiar voice now warped, smeared with despair. "We need you!" Walter gripped his temples, his mind onto the brink of shattering. "Get away!" he yelled, suffocated by the need to escape. "You're not real. None of this is real." But the creature drew closer, its little hands outstretched, fingers morphing into grotesque shapes. The whispers joined in chorus, a maddening din rising and crashing around him like waves. "Help us! Help us!" The shadows surged forward, seeping into him, filling him with an unending dread. Walter felt the walls pressing in, his own screams swallowed by the cacophony. He raised his hands, fighting against the encroaching darkness swallowing the room, but it was like grappling with smoke. "Please!" he begged, voice breaking. "I'll do anything. Just let me go." And in an instant, the room stilled, a silence so deep it reverberated in his bones. The shadows recoiled, the whispers ceased, and before him lay a mirror, its surface rippling with dark energy. He reached towards it, compelled to see that as his fingers brushed the cold glass, a vision exploded before him: Mary, alive but fading, trapped in a world of shadows, calling out for help. The horror twisted in his gut, a dreadful realization solidifying in his mind that if he stepped through, he could save her, but what price would it demand from him? What lies on the other side? He wondered, heart racing against the walls of the room that had confined him for so long. The mirror began to shimmer, offering a glimpse of hope or anguish. There was no turning back now. Would he risk everything for a second chance? What awaited him if he took that leap? Before he could decide, the house rumbled with a vicious hunger, and the laughter returned with a vengeance. "Choose." It panted, shadows writhing, closing in once more. The decision was upon him, but the clock was ticking down, and the darkness loomed thicker than ever. He dared to step closer, feeling destiny nudge him forward. What awaited him on that other side? Only one way to find out. The mirror pulsed with an unnatural light, beckoning him closer. Walter felt the call resonate deep within his bones. Each heartbeat thudded in his ears, drowning out the hellish laughter of the house. "Choose." It rasped, the voice now a faint whisper, a sinister echo filled with temptation. That he could see her Mary's face glowing softly against the dark, her eyes filled with both hope and despair. Would this moment obliterate the countless nights he spent haunted by fear? Or would it plunge him further into madness? "Mary!" he shouted, voice trembling, as desperation clawed at him to act. The shimmering surface seemed alive, alive just as the room had felt moments ago. He swallowed hard, hesitating, but the frantic whispers resumed, vibrating through him like an electric shock. "Help us! Help us!" A relentless plea that he could not lose her. "Not again. Not like this. I'll save you." He gasped, lunging forward. The mirror swallowed him whole. For an instant, he was weightless, suspended in darkness. Then, a jarring impact. He crashed onto a cold, hard surface, a stark contrast to the warmth of the light he had just left behind. Gulping in a breath, Walter found himself in a new room. The air was thick, humid, and clung to his skin like wet gauze. An unyielding darkness enveloped him, heavier than the shadows he'd just escaped. "Mary?" he stammered, each syllable swallowed by the absence of sound. No answer. Just a haunting echo. His heart raced as he squinted into the gloom, searching for any sign of her. Instinctively, he reached out, the walls treacherously close on all sides. He could feel the splintered wood against his fingertips, cold, unwelcoming. With each step deeper into the room, unease took root, the silence was thick enough to choke on. A whisper scampered past his ear. He spun around, but there was nothing, only the pressing dark. "Mary!" he called again. A chill crept down his spine, as if the house itself were responding to his calls, absorbing his fear. Just ahead, a faint light flickered. Cautiously, he approached, heart hammering. The light danced erratically, giving glimpses of shapes that lurked just beyond. Shadowy figures darted in and out, teasing his peripheral vision, shifting with unsettling fluidity. His pulse quickened. "Is anyone there?" Suddenly, a shrill laugh erupted behind him. "Found you!" it mocked, the voice sweet yet sickening. He whirled to find nothing but the dark swirling. The atmosphere shifted. Heavy, clammy fingers seemed to wrap around him, tightening his chest, sapping his breath. His own voice echoed back, taunting, pleading, melting into that relentless laugh. "Help us! Help us!" He stumbled backward, losing himself in panic. The shadows twisted in response, lurching like snakes poised to strike. Which way was out? Before he could think, the shimmer returned, fingers grasping at the edge of his vision. It was Mary. No, it wasn't just her, it was an entire crowd of shadows behind her. They came alive, reaching out, mouths moving but with no sound, their faces a grotesque parody of agony and hope. "Walter," they chorused, a symphony of yearning that clawed at his sanity. "You must help us." It was too much. He felt himself teetering on the edge of reality. "Get away from me!" he shouted, hands raised defensively. But the darkness didn't retreat. It advanced, thickening, swirling, swallowing him whole. There was nowhere left to run. And with a sickening jolt, he understood. The house didn't want him to save Mary. It wanted him to choose to consume everything he loved until nothing remained. And as everything faded to black, a chilling question clung to his mind. Was he the savior, or was he merely another soul trapped, forever at the mercy of the house's malignant hunger? "Choose," the voice urged once more, but this time it was laced with something else, a promise, and it all began again. What hidden truth lingered in the shadows, waiting to be uncovered? Walter awoke with a jolt, gasping for air as if he'd been submerged. The air around him felt alive, vibrating with unspoken threats. Panic washed over him, electrifying his senses. He was back where he'd started, the dark room he'd thought he had escaped. What was that promise? He couldn't shake the thought. It lurked in the corners of his mind, whispering tantalizing lies. Threads of urgency pulled at him. The shadows, not just an ominous presence, danced along the walls, twisting and writhing. "Mary?" he called, dread seeping into his words. The name felt like a lost prayer. No answer came, just the insidious echoes of his voice mocking him, drawing out the silence. Heart pounding, he stumbled forward, dread painting the walls in shades of gray. Each step was an act of defiance against the unseen force that pressed down on him. A sudden chilling breeze rushed past, sending shivers through his bones. It carried a scent, an overwhelming stench of decay, mixed with something sweet and rotten. Walter clenched his fists, willing himself not to succumb to despair. He turned, searching the threshold of darkness, desperation clawing at his insides. Shadows twisted closer, moving with a hungry intent. There, darting from one corner to another, he glimpsed what looked like fingers reaching out, long, skeletal, like talons ready to seize their prey. "Mary! Please!" he shouted, but the walls swallowed his cries. The thick air pressed in around him, squeezing his chest tighter, as if the house itself was trying to silence him. Then, with dreadful clarity, he heard it again, laughter. High-pitched and jarring, it reverberated through the heavy gloom, wrapping around him like a shroud. It wasn't just one voice, it was a cacophony of panicked whispers layered over each other, intertwining in a grotesque symphony. "There's nowhere to go," they chanted, a chorus that chilled his blood. You have to choose. Before he could respond, shapes began to emerge from the shadows, twisting and contorting. They looked like people, like souls suspended in agony. Memories of joy melted into expressions of torment. The faces were familiar, faces he had loved and lost. Mary smiled amid the horror, her eyes pleading. Walter, save us! Her voice sliced through the noise, resonating deep within him. The darkness shifted, swirling violently, and he felt something hard gripping his wrists. That he whirled around, terror flooding him as a shadowed figure emerged. It bore no features, just an amorphous mass shrouded in despair. It raised a hand, and a jolt of terror shot through him, freezing him in place. This way, Walter, it murmured, a voice low and honeyed, dripping with false comfort. You can save them. Choose them, choose her. Or Walter's breath caught in his throat. Or what? He demanded, fear sparking rage within him. Or you will be lost forever. The figure pointed toward a door, just a suggestion under the weight of shadows, barely illuminated by a ghostly light. In that instant, he realized, this was the exit, but was it truly freedom? The house had laid a trap, every choice wrapped in illusion, every path beckoning him deeper into madness. No. He shook his head violently, determination surging through him. I refuse to play your game. With that, he charged toward the door, pushing through the darkness. The shadows howled in anguish, clawing at his skin, but he pressed on, fueled by an impulse, a primal instinct to survive. And then, just when he thought he was free, a hand shot out from the darkness, gripping his arm tightly. I told you, you can't escape. Walter's scream mingled with the laughter, drowning out everything, but then he felt something shift, a flicker of hope sparkling just beneath the chaos. What if this was the moment? What if he really could break the cycle? As he wrestled against the grip, a chilling sound echoed in the air, one that sent fresh waves of dread crashing over him. The mirror glowed, pulsing with vigor, promising escape, renewal, or was it destined to ensnare him again? Choose, Walter, choose. Was he ready to gamble it all once more? Walter's heart raced as he struggled against the shadow's grip. The pressure around his arm felt like a vice. That false voice slithered into his ear, you can't outrun what you are, you can't escape yourself. He squinted against the dark, the glint of the mirror pulling his gaze. It flickered like a heartbeat, alive, whispering promises like a lover's sigh. But with every beat of his heart, uncertainty grew. What if freedom was just another layer of the trap? With a surge of anger, he hurled himself forward, breaking the grip that felt like ice. He stumbled toward the mirror, drawing closer to that pulsing glow. The shadows shrieked, their sorrow washing over him like cold waves, dragging at his feet, desperate to reclaim him. Mary! I'm coming! But her voice was drowned out by the cacophony of tortured souls swirling around him, faces twisted in pain. The laughter morphed, a guttural resonance that paralyzed him momentarily. Around him, they clamored, their eyes wide with a madness that chilled his blood. Why don't you join us, Walter? They chanted, the sound twisting like barbed wire. Shut up! He yelled back, fury igniting his senses. He refocused on the mirror which shimmered translucently. Hints of memories flickered within, best forgotten moments of happiness and love, interspersed with darkness. Do it! The voice of the shadow thundered, resonating through the very walls. Choose, or be condemned. Walter lunged at the mirror, hands outstretched. The glass felt unnaturally warm, as if it had a pulse of its own. He pressed against it, and a shock of energy rushed through him, illuminating the space like lightning in a storm. He felt like he was being pulled into a void. Images flooded his mind, the good and the bad, laughter and loss. Suddenly, a face emerged from within the depths. It was Mary, ethereal and beautiful. Walter! Help me! Her voice was both a call and a plea, dripping with anguish. But he began, but the words splintered under the weight of his choice, the shadows howled, furious at his hesitation. Choose! They shrieked. Save her! Or lose everything. Tears stung Walter's eyes as he felt the boundaries of his mind stretch. The house was reacting to his turmoil. The walls pulsated, feeding off his fear, building to a crescendo that reverberated through his bones. "Save us." Mary's voice crept back, tinged with desperation. "You can't leave me, not again." In one agonizing moment, clarity shattered his indecision. "I choose," he whispered, the words thick on his tongue. The light in the mirror flickered brighter, heartbeat racing with a devil's delight, as if it knew the nature of his thoughts, but just as he prepared to dive in, the house erupted around him. Shadows clawed at his back, seizing him with icy fingers, dragging him back away from the mirror's glow. The surface rippled like water disturbed, aching to be touched. "Let go of me!" he screamed, thrashing wildly against the suffocating darkness now clawing at him, consuming him. The whole room trembled, the laughter turning into an ominous chorus of warnings. Then, as if sensing his grave threat, the house unleashed a terrible roar, a single flicker illuminating the darkness, a hissing whisper just above the chaos. "No matter what you choose, Walter, it's not over." With that, the floor began to crumble beneath his feet, tearing apart like old parchment. Desperation spiked within him as he grappled for anything solid. Was there even a way out? The shadows screamed, and Walter could feel the pull of despair tightening around him, luring him deeper into the murk. Just as the ground slipped away, he saw something gleaming on the floor, a key, the potential savior he never knew he needed. In that moment of chaos, with everything tearing at his sanity, he lunged for it, praying that it would lead him back to the light, but what door would it open? Walter's fingers brushed the cool metal of the key, its surface a beacon in the heart of chaos. Just as his grip tightened around it, a violent tremor shook the floor again. The shadows stirred violently, their whispers rising to a howling crescendo that clawed at his sanity. He had the key. It felt heavy in his palm, and a rush of hope flickered. Was this the answer? Was this the escape? But the shadows pulsed with dark energy, seeming to congeal and twist as they surged toward him, fueled by his moment of hesitation. "Walter!" Mary's voice echoed through the madness, crystalline amidst the cacophony. It swept him into a forgotten memory, a summer's day, laughter filling the air. But just as fast, that light fell away, replaced by the suffocating darkness of his reality. Now, the shadows lunged, fingers like claws grazing his back. He stumbled back, losing his footing, the key slipping from his grasp. It clattered against the floor, ringing out like a death knell as he scrambled to catch it, panic sprouting roots deep in his gut. "Get it!" the ghastly chorus screamed, a wave of frenzied desperation crashing over him. They sounded like a million voices rising in unison, an unholy amalgamation of fury. Get it before it's too late. Direction was lost in the chaos, but he could feel the mirror pulling him back, a predator hungry for a chance to feast. He locked eyes with it, that shimmering surface radiating a sinister allure. His heart thumped in sync with its pulsing glow, a rhythm woven with both hope and dread. "Walter!" Mary's voice beckoned from beyond, but the shadows were loud, their screeches suffocating. "Choose. Choose us." In that moment, clarity dawned. He needed to act or be lost forever. With another anxious glance at the mirror, he lunged for the key, fingers closing around its cold steel once more. Then everything shifted, the ground gave way beneath him, and he tumbled into the depths. Walls of shadow closed in, dark tendrils wrapping around him, dragging him further from any light. The mirror's luminous glow faded to silence, the laughter transformed into anguished wails. His heart pounded, echoing the crash of his fall, terror spurred him onward. He fought the shadows clutching at him, kicking against despair. With a surge of primal instinct, he twisted, angling for the solid wall he could feel nearby. The key was still in hand, persistent and unwavering. "Open your eyes!" shouted a voice, slashing through the veil of despair. It wasn't tea from within. Could it be the strength of Mary? With a desperate thrust, he turned the key in the air, imagining it fitting into the unseen lock before him. Nothing happened. Frustration ignited like dry kindling. He could not fail here. He would not fail her again. Fire surged in him, rekindling hope, and he hurled himself toward an unseen barrier where the screaming shadows thrummed with dread. "I choose to fight," he shouted, the words wielding strength he didn't know he had. The key glowed, pulsating in his palm as he slammed it against the wall, summoning every ounce of courage. The ground quaked hard, as if the house itself was responding. Then, with a flash, the wall shifted, revealing a door shimmering with light, but what awaited him beyond? The shadows fell silent, an eerie calm sweeping over the room just before the door swung ominously ajar. He inhaled sharply, heart racing again as fear surged through him. What lay behind it? Was it salvation or the final trap? He had no choice but to step through. The light that spilled from the door was blinding, but it pulsed with warmth, a stark contrast to the cold touch of the shadows that had pursued him. Heart hammering, Walter hesitated only for a heartbeat. Then he stepped through, bracing himself for whatever lay ahead. The air shifted instantly. The tightness in his chest loosened. He found himself in a dim corridor lined with peeling wallpaper, the patterns fading like distant memories. A single bulb flickered above, giving the room a sickly glow. "Mary?" he called, voice trembling. Silence answered, thick and heavy like the weight of a secret. Each step echoed, the sound swallowed by the oppressive stillness. A sense of danger prickled his skin. This wasn't home. He turned to face the door, half expecting the shadows to burst through, but it remained closed. The room felt alive, pulsating with a sense of foreboding. There was no going back now. A door loomed at the end of the corridor, ajar and dark. The key in his hand seemed to vibrate with urgency, beckoning him forward. He approached cautiously, the floor creaking beneath him as if protesting his intrusion. Each footfall echoed louder than the last, each sound a reminder of his vulnerability. Reaching the door, he hesitated. Was this where nightmares took form? He pushed gently, and the door swung wide with a ghostly creak. Inside was a small room cluttered with furniture shrouded in white sheets, as if hiding secrets from prying eyes. Walter stepped in, his breath hitching. Dust swirled in the thin beams of light streaking through grimy windows. He felt it, the weight of history, the echo of despair. At the far wall, a mirror, much like the one that had ensnared him before, loomed large. In its reflection, he caught a glimpse of himself, pale and wide-eyed. The shadows in his memories danced just beyond the glass, taunting him. As he approached, the surface rippled, consuming his image. He raised the key, feeling its heat seep into his skin. "This is it," he whispered to no one. "I have to know." He pressed the key against the mirror. The glass shimmered violently, as if responding to his determination. Just then, the whispers returned, rasping and delirious, wrapping around him like a cocoon. "Walter, Walter, come play." They hissed, seductive yet sinister. Panic surged through him. "Get back!" he shouted, but the voices only intensified, merging into a cacophony of agony. "Join us!" they cried, and he could feel their icy tendrils curling around his legs, willing him to surrender. Digging deep, he focused on Mary. Her laughter, real and untainted, invoked a fierce defiance. "I will not be yours!" he screamed, slamming the key against the mirror. The glass shattered, exploding into a million shards that rained down like glittering stars. Each fragment sparkled with memories: Mary's smile, his childhood home, and moments of pure joy ripped from him. The shadows screamed in anguish, retreating from the shattered mirror. Yet, a darkness began to ooze from the corners of the room, pooling at his feet. This was no victory. It was a trap. Walter stumbled backward, heart racing, as the darkness swirled violently. "What have I done?" he gasped, glancing toward the remnants of the mirror. From within the shadows, a figure began to materialize, a silhouette emerging from the very depths of despair. The laughter transformed into a ghastly mimicry, growing louder, filling the small room with a malevolent glee. "What awaits you now, Walter?" the figure taunted, its voice slithering through the air like smoke that he couldn't breathe. Every instinct screamed to run, but the doorway felt miles away. He had fought so hard to break free, only to find himself face to face with something far worse than he ever imagined. As the darkness enveloped him, he realized this was just the beginning. What horror awaited in the abyss behind the shattered glass? Walter staggered back, his heart racing against the haunting atmosphere. The flickering light cast eerie shadows around the room, and the air became thick, suffocating as it filled with whispers that echoed like taunts he could not outrun. The figure, the embodiment of all his fears, drew closer, solidifying into a ghastly version of Mary, her features twisted like a fractured memory. The hollowness in her eyes seared into his soul, tethering him to the moment he feared most. Walter, the figure crooned, her voice laced with sweet seduction, a twisted reflection of the warmth he once knew. "You did this. You shattered our chance. Why fight it? Join us." "No," Walter shouted, pushing against the tide of despair. "This wasn't Mary. Not the Mary he loved. You're not her. You're a shadow." The room trembled, shadows coiling like snakes ready to strike. He could feel the darkness surge, hungry and fierce. Walter's grip tightened on the key, awareness flooding back. This was his moment. "Mary needs saving, and I want to let you keep her," he screamed, channeling every ounce of strength into his words. He turned toward the remnants of the shattered mirror, its broken shards lying scattered like fallen stars. He could feel at the pulse of a fragile hope that flickered just beyond reach. With renewed determination, he leaped toward the pieces, heart pounding with urgency. "I will not be your puppet," Walter shouted, scooping up a jagged shard, its surface glimmering with the essence of moments he treasured. He rushed toward the encroaching darkness, aware that time was slipping through his fingers. "I choose to fight." The shadows recoiled, hissing and thrashing out as he thrust the shard forward. "You won't take anything else from me." With a piercing scream, he connected the shard with the shadowy figure of Mary, and a shockwave erupted. The room roared, the fabric of reality tearing apart as the figure began to dissipate, drawn back into the shadows that had birthed it. The echoes of tormented souls crescendoed, fighting against the force that threatened to consume them. In that moment, Walter felt the presence of the lost families. He could sense their energy swirling around him, infusing him with strength against the lurking despair. "You can't take me. You can't take anyone," he roared, raising the shard high, the determination coursing through him like an unyielding tide. "I will break the cycle." The darkness wailed, furious and frantic, but Walter pressed on. He hurled the shard into the center of the shadows, the glass slicing through the murky air. The moment it made contact, a blinding light erupted, an explosion of energy that coursed through the very foundations of the house. With breathtaking force, the shadows screamed one final time, buckling under the weight of Walter's willpower. The walls quaked, and the creature's laughter twisted into agonizing wails, reverberating until they faded into eerie silence. When the light subsided, Walter found himself alone in the room, the sinister weight lifted. The shadows lay still, quiet, as if they'd been banished from existence. He looked around, breathing in the stale dust, heart still racing, and felt a profound emptiness continue to linger. Then, as if a whisper of hope had returned, he saw her, Mary, manifesting from the air itself. Her silhouette glowed in the fading light, free from the torments of the house. "Walter," she breathed, her voice a soothing balm. "You did it." Walter rushed forward, wrapping his arms around her, feeling the warmth of her embrace chase away the shadows of doubt. "I thought I lost you," he replied, tears flooding his eyes. "You fought for me," she said, her smile lighting up the darkness. "You saved us all." The room around them shimmered, and Walter could see glimpses of the lost families' faces once full of sorrow now emerging into the light, echoed with peace. Their grateful looks met his, thankful and serene. As Mary took his hand, the floor beneath them trembled lightly, shifting into a safe passageway. "It's time to go home," she whispered, her eyes shimmering with love. With one last look at the shattered remnants of the house, Walter turned toward the door leading away from the darkness. He knew the fight had been grueling, but love had triumphed over despair. Together they stepped into the light, leaving the haunted house behind forever. Walter breathed deeply as sunlight streamed around them. He turned to Mary, love radiating between them. He understood now sometimes, the shadows brought strength, but love brought freedom. And as they walked hand in hand into the warm embrace of a new day, a spark ignited within him, a promise to cherish each moment they shared. That it was over, and finally, they were free. Don't leave yet. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second, hit that subscribe button right now. We've got more exclusive stories lined up just for you, and you need to be part of it. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and spread the word, because every click makes a difference. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this thrilling conclusion. What was your favorite moment? And share this video with at least 5 friends, help them uncover this haunting journey too. Your support means the world. You're a true fan, and it's time to show it.